let's start with permission. Right away, I'm like, okay, permission from whom about what, right? Like permission for what and from whom? I want to sort of propose possibilities to you. The idea that all feelings of scarcity and unloving thoughts come from a fear of disconnection. It seems a fear and experience of disconnection. So, as a possible reference point, when you're feeling negative, scarce, judgmental of yourself, there's a disconnection somewhere that's really the underpinning to the reason of those thoughts being present and intrusive. So if that's possibly true, then this idea of permission about what and from whom comes sharply into focus in a new way. Because regardless of condition, the conditions that you're in, the conditions that you're surrounded by, and the people and the way they perceive and react to those conditions, you always have permission to feel connected to yourself. How do we know we're feeling connected to ourselves and our self-worth? Because it inimitably feels good, regardless of kind of what's going on around us, especially when we're in conditions that are not necessarily positive or conducive to our own connectivity, to support and safety and security in that environment. Knowing that you have the choice, no matter what, to choose connection to yourself. We can talk about what that actually means and how it looks in a second, is kind of the only kind of permission you ever really need. And it's kind of the only subject you need to remain focused on as permission from whom about what. Right? Imagine if you could, regardless of circumstance and interaction and participation with anybody that you're with or surrounded by, you could consistently choose to connect, and in the face of feeling disconnected from, be aware that you're disconnected and reconnect to your self-worth. Think about that for a second and what the prospect of that could offer us. Because it's not conditional. There's no reason, and there's pretty much no circumstance. And I know that there's the extremes of human experience, but generally there's pretty much no circumstance that determines whether or not you can stay in connection with, feel grounded by, and respond from your self-worth. Doesn't mean that we magically make the conditions go away. Doesn't mean that we magically get the powers to control anybody in those conditions. But it does mean that we get to choose how we respond to that input that we're perceiving that says we're not worth anything. Because when we're in that place of disconnection chronically, that's where we've got to reach to all these other things to fill in as a facsimile the thing that we're innately born to have anyway. So we eat sweets at night. What I'm proposing is the idea that we've been in a perpetual, habitual state of disconnection from self, and we are missing the sweetness and the joy of that feeling. So we got to replace it with something. A behavior, a substance, a person, a person's approval, a person's validation. None of those surpass our own. And people often think that that connection to self-worth means that you're going to be falsely aggrandizing, right? But that's connection to ego, not self-worth. Connection to ego does that. Connection to self-worth just calms and soothes and humbles you and allows you to look at things with both eyes and truthfully in your assessment of them. So there's no illusion or delusion going on from that place. It just reminds you that that feeling says, I'm worthy. There's no condition where I'm not. just because somebody else perceives me as being deficient in some way, or that I have fault in some form. I know the feeling of my value, and I can turn to that with full permission anytime I choose to. If that's even possibly true, we have a whole new way to look at, dare I say, kind of life and scarcity and judgment itself or themselves. All of a sudden, it's like, well, wait a second. I'm able to give myself what I need for myself, whatever I need it, without waiting for anybody to tell me that it's okay to do it? Huh. Whole new ballgame.